Aloha, everybody. I'm Ryan Cahew. I'm a business attorney in Honolulu, Hawaii, and I wanted to do a longer video about the update on the Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA, and the preliminary injunction that just came out this week to give business owners that are curious about a little bigger context because a lot of shorter videos or shorter updates or blog posts and things like that is basically there's an injunction, wait and see. So I want to give people who know me or a lot of organizations that I work with know I tend to be an education type when I work with clients or webinar attendees and things like that. So let's first start. On December 3rd, a judge in a federal court in Texas basically enjoined the federal government of enforcing the Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA. Specifically, it's that reporting requirement, beneficial ownership information report, that business owners had to disclose their beneficial ownership over registered business entities like LLCs and corporations. So the preliminary injunction basically says, hey, government, you can't enforce this. And the reason why is that the judge felt that the plaintiffs were likely to succeed in finding the CTA unconstitutional. And I say likely, that's an important word to understand. And it's also important to understand that this is a preliminary injunction. So for right now, with that ruling, is businesses and their business owners do not need to comply with that January 1st, 2025 deadline because the government is enjoined, through the injunction of preventing it from enforcing the Corporate Transparency Act. So specifically, what is a preliminary injunction? It's basically a temporary court order that says that basically halts enforcement of a legal process, so long as the injunction is in effect. But the key thing is it's preliminary, so that means it's not final. So what can happen is the government can appeal this decision and may ask a higher court to basically lift the appeal. If it does, the injunction, if it lifts the injunction, that is the higher court, then the reporting requirement is back on and the government will enforce. So this is far from a settled issue, right? It's going to go up its way up the appeal system. Um, so why is this all important? Why are we having this discussion and this back and forth about a new law reporting requirement? Well, first of all, the Corporate Transparency Act, the CTA, was enacted to combat financial crimes like money laundering and terrorism being used through the United States banking and financial system. And that's because there was always a question of who was starting up these fly-by-night LLCs, corporations, and them opening business bank accounts under LLCs and corporations. Um, while the law was meant to target these bad actors, it does put this compliance, this reporting requirement on small businesses. And so some of the concerns are the costs that it takes business owners to comply and understand what they need to do. There's also privacy concerns because some of this is sensitive information stored on a federal database. So that's the kind of dialogue that's at play and being argued in the court system about this new law. So, what could happen next now that we have this preliminary injunction? And I think more importantly, what people are kind of ignoring, but is true, is we're going to have a new presidential administration take over in January 20th specifically. Um, and the president elect has named a new Treasury Secretary. Obviously, President first has to be sworn in, and then through advice and consent of the Senate, his cabinet picks would have to then be kind of installed into their cabinet positions. So this changes and adds a dimension into, well, does the government still want to enforce this new law? Does it want to change the law? Because we have a new presidential administration. So that adds another layer to about why business owners need to stay informed and kind of updated about changes in laws, lawsuits, nationwide preliminary injunctions. So some of the next steps that we could possibly see is the government could again appeal the injunction, so that would reinstate the reporting requirements. Um, FinCEN, the government agency responsible for this reporting requirement, the enforcement, they may try and propose changes to try and address they have some administrative powers. Um, the new presidential administration could also work with Congress to amend the Corporate Transparency Act, addressing the court's kind of issues and questions on the constitutionality to deal with it. So as business owners, what should you? Yeah, it's kind of wait and see. If you are not intending to comply with the law, that is, there's nothing stopping you of continue filing a report, but right now the injunction is saying the government can't enforce it. But I think for most business owners, they're going to probably stay prepared, keep abreast on the news, but just wait and see what happens next. Because again, if the injunction is lifted, then the deadline is back on that January 1st, 2025 deadline of filing a beneficial ownership information report. So um, I would say, unfortunately, it's a wait and see, and it's one of these times a lawyer like myself has to tell a business owner, well, it depends, and there's no definitive answer right now. So be aware. Um, talk to your advisors. Specifically, if you have a business attorney, speak to your business attorney. Um, some of this information is coming through your accountants, financial advisors, and for those of you business owners that own your businesses through trusts, possibly your estate planning attorneys. So um, I'm happy for reach outs to kind of share white papers, information that we've prepared for our own clients if you're curious. But again, I think it's best to lean on your advisors right now to get updates and then figure out a game plan as you're waiting and seeing what the federal government does next, given that there's a preliminary injunction in place that is stopping or halting the enforcement of the Corporate Transparency Act's reporting requirement. Again, what that means is that business owners do not need to file that uh, beneficial ownership information report by the January 1st, 2025 deadline. As always, consult with your advisors and then figure out best steps of what that means for you. But again, this is to give you a wider discussion about what the context and why things can kind of rapidly change from, hey, we're advising and recommending that you comply with this new law to it might be best to wait and see. So that's how one court preliminary injunction can kind of change the course for the whole nation of businesses. So I hope that helps and stay tuned.